Hello, Grade 8, and welcome to this Masterclass Explainer. You know, there are an estimated 8.7 million species on Earth, and it's crazy to think about, but we've actually only discovered and named a tiny fraction of them. So today, we're diving into a really critical lesson for our Tag science curriculum. We're going to break down exactly how scientists organize every single living thing on our planet, and we'll explore the fascinating systems that give structure to the incredible, wild biodiversity living all around us.
Here is our roadmap for today. We're going to funnel down from the absolute largest, most inclusive groups of life, all the way down to how we specifically name individual species. So we'll start with the science of sorting, scale up to the massive domains and kingdoms, dive right into the biological hierarchy, and finally, we'll unlock the universal language of naming life. Let's get right to it.
All right, Section 1, the science of sorting. Honestly, why do we even bother sorting life in the first place?
To put this into perspective, think about the sheer confusion of local names. Say you're in America and you mention a buzzard. Well, they're going to think you're talking about a large scavenging vulture. But cross the ocean to Europe and say buzzard, and they assume you mean a hunting hawk. Common names create massive confusion. Now imagine trying to track conservation efforts for marine and land ecosystems without a totally universal system to identify exactly which species are vulnerable. It would be chaos. Conservationists literally cannot save a rainforest or protect a delicate coral reef if they don't know exactly what unique puzzle pieces live there. Whether we're looking at life below water or life on land, categorizing species is really the only way scientists can accurately monitor ecosystem health and develop sustainable survival strategies.
To solve all this chaos, we rely on two distinct but deeply connected branches of science. First up is taxonomy. This is the actual science of naming, describing, and classifying organisms. I want you to think of taxonomy as a massive, highly organized filing cabinet. But we don't just want to name things and stick them in a folder, right? We want to know their deep history, and that is where systematics comes in. Systematics is the study of the diversity of organisms and their evolutionary relationships over time. If taxonomy is the filing cabinet, well, systematics is the family tree. It's the broader science that lets us figure out incredible evolutionary pathways, like tracking the exact genetic line of how modern chickens evolved directly from theropod dinosaurs.
So now that we know why we classify, let's jump to Section 2, the 3 domains. We're going to begin our macro to micro journey with the widest lens possible, using a system proposed by a brilliantly innovative American microbiologist named Carl Woese back in the late 1970s.
Carl Woese's discovery was completely revolutionary for science. Before the 1970s, scientists basically just looked at living things and grouped them by what they looked like. You know, plants over here, animals over there. But Woese looked much deeper. He studied specific molecular data, primarily sequences in ribosomal RNA, which is basically the ancient genetic instruction manual found inside cells. And by doing this, Woese realized something massive. All life actually fits into 3 distinct, giant domains: bacteria, archaea, and eukarya. They're separated by fundamental genetic and biochemical differences that trace all the way back to the very origins of life on Earth.
The ultimate dividing line between these domains is their cellular makeup. Bacteria and archaea are simple prokaryotes. To remember this, let's look at the root words. Pro means before, and karyon means nut or kernel, which refers to the nucleus. So a prokaryote is a single-celled organism that evolved before the nucleus. It completely lacks a true nucleus. On the other hand, eukarya contains complex eukaryotic cells. Eu means true, so these are cells with a true nucleus and other complex membrane-bound organelles. The eukarya domain is incredibly diverse. It includes both single-celled and complex multicellular organisms, which literally includes every plant, every single mushroom, and every animal, including us.
Okay, moving right along to Section 3, exploring the 6 kingdoms. Let's take those broad domains we just learned and split them down into a slightly more specific tier.
So the major domains fan out into specific kingdoms. That highly complex eukarya domain breaks down into 4 distinct, recognizable kingdoms: Animalia, Plantae, Fungi, and Protista. Meanwhile, the older, simpler domains, bacteria and archaea, basically each represent their own individual kingdoms, which we often refer to as eubacteria and archaeobacteria. Now we can easily classify the most familiar eukaryotic organisms by simply looking at how they survive, specifically their nutrition and their movement. Animals in Kingdom Animalia are heterotrophs. Hetero means other, and troph means feed. So we feed on others. We generally move around and survive by ingesting food. Kingdom Plantae consists of autotrophs.
Auto means self, so plants just stay put and make their own food using sunlight through photosynthesis. Then we have kingdom fungi, which includes things like mushrooms and molds. They are non-modal like plants, meaning they don't move around, but they don't make their own food. Instead, they absorb nutrients from dead or decaying matter using tiny thread-like structures called hyphae. And hey, here's a crazy surprising fact for you. Genetically speaking, fungi are actually much more closely related to animals than they are to plants. No way, right?
And that brings us to the fourth eukaryotic group, kingdom Protista. Protists are basically the fantastic misfits, or imposters, of the natural world. Some move around and hunt like animals, like microscopic protozoans. Some make their own food like plants, such as green algae. They share traits with the other major kingdoms, but they just don't fit perfectly into any of those strict structural boxes. For example, think about giant kelp forests in the ocean. They look exactly like towering underwater trees, but they're not plants at all. They're actually massive protists.
Rounding out our 6 kingdoms, we absolutely have to contrast our 2 prokaryotic kingdoms. Eubacteria are your everyday true bacteria. You will find them everywhere. Some are incredibly helpful organisms working right now inside your digestive tract, and others are harmful pathogens that can make you sick. On the flip side, we have archaeobacteria. Scientists actually call these organisms extremophiles because they absolutely love extreme conditions. We are talking about ancient survivors that thrive in places where you'd think life is completely impossible. Boiling hot springs, highly acidic lakes, and deep-sea volcanic vents where sunlight never even reaches.
Okay, we've covered the absolute largest groups. Let's move into Section 4, the hierarchy of life. Let's see how taxonomists build the entire structural address for any living thing, moving from the macro level all the way down to the micro. Taxonomists use these exact 8 levels to categorize all life. It works just like an inverted pyramid or a funnel. We start at the top with the most inclusive category, the domain, and we filter down through kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, and genus until we reach the absolute bottom, the species. Members of the same species share intense genetic similarities and can successfully interbreed to produce fertile offspring. Now, how are you going to memorize these 8 levels for your exams? Use this classic, super fun sentence. Dear King Philip came over for good soup. Domain, kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, genus, species. Definitely keep that mnemonic in your back pocket. To really grasp how this funnel works, let's map out the biological address for you and me. Humans belong to the domain Eukarya because our cells have a true nucleus. We're in the kingdom Animalia because we're heterotrophs who ingest our food. We're in phylum Chordata because we have a spinal cord and a backbone. We filter down into class Mammalia because we have hair and produce milk, and then into order Primates because of our forward-facing eyes and grasping hands. We narrow further into the family Homini. Finally, we arrive at our highly specific genus, Homo, and our exact species, Homo sapiens, which literally translates from Latin to mean wise man.
Which brings us perfectly to the absolute bottom of our classification funnel, Section 5, Naming Life. Now that we've sorted an organism all the way down to its exact species, how do we universally name it?
To avoid that massive confusion we talked about earlier with the local languages, we rely on binomial nomenclature. Binomial simply means 2 names, and nomenclature just means a naming system. This brilliant, universal 2-part naming system was developed by Carolus Linnaeus, who is rightly known as the father of taxonomy. And you might be wondering, why did he choose Latin for this system? Well, Latin was the universal language of scholars back then, but more importantly, Latin is a dead language. It isn't spoken as a native tongue anymore, which means it doesn't change, it doesn't invent slang, and it doesn't evolve like modern languages do. This keeps the scientific names perfectly stable forever. A fantastic and super simple analogy for this 2-part scientific name is your very own name. Just as you share a surname with your family members, closely related animals will share the exact same genus. For instance, there are tons of different types of small wild cats out there. Domestic cats, jungle cats, sand cats. And because they're so closely related, they all share the genus Felis. But their specific species name acts like a unique first name to tell each of them apart from their cousins. Now, when writing these scientific names, there are strict formatting rules taxonomists absolutely must follow worldwide, and this is a crucial tip for all of you taking your Maratag science exams. The genus, which is the first word, is absolutely always capitalized. The species, the second word, is always strictly lowercase. Furthermore, the entire 2-part name must be italicized when you type it on a computer, but if you're writing it out by hand on your test paper, you can't italicize, so you must underline both words separately. If you forget to capitalize the genus or underline the words, the answer is scientifically incorrect. By learning these rules and recognizing these names, you literally unlock the universal language of biology. Any scientist, anywhere in the world, knows exactly what organism you are talking about. You can also instantly recognize evolutionary relationships. If you see Felis catus, the domestic cat, and Felis chaus, the jungle cat, you immediately know they're very closely related simply by reading their shared scientific surname. Plus, by knowing this language, you even get to understand scientists' jokes. Biologists actually have a pretty great sense of humor. Like, did you know they named a species of glamorous golden-haired horsefly Scaptia beyoncé? Or they named a very annoying species of beetle Aggravation?
The beauty of biological classification is that it reveals exactly how deeply connected we are to every single living thing. Finding order in the stunning, wild diversity of our planet is honestly one of the greatest achievements of science. So I challenge you, grade 8, right now, look out your window, look at a pet, a bug on the wall, or a towering tree outside, and just wonder to yourself, what incredible, millions of years long taxonomic journey lies behind its universal scientific name? Keep questioning, keep exploring, and I'll see you in the next Masterclass Explainer.